Good afternoon and welcome to our final session on our three-part series on using technology and innovation in the 6 steps of the financial planning process. If you missed the previous sessions, you can find this on the FPI's YouTube channel, and each section will carry you, or will rather earn you, one general CPD hour after completing the assessment on the learning portal. In our second session, previously we looked at steps 3 and 4 of the financial planning process, where we looked at the analysis and presentation thereof. Client engagement was emphasized in the session, and we discussed how do you as a planner customize this to suit your individual client. How do you unpack the terminology to make the client understand the solutions that you are putting forth? And the importance of having a simple conversation, with your clients when unpacking the financial needs analysis. We also went into the various tools one could use and how you can effectively use your financial needs analysis tool to keep the interest of your client. And joining us once more, we have familiar faces. So welcome, Francois Dutoy, who is going to be the facilitator for the session. We've got Amanda John, Louis van der Merwe, and Russell Ho. So, lady and gentlemen, I will leave the screen to you.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Seema, and a warm welcome and a good afternoon to everybody joining us live for this session. Really amazing. If you are watching the recording, thank you as well, because this will be available on the FPI's YouTube channel to watch. And just to reiterate that if you want to earn that general CPD point, you need to do the assessment on the portal, on your learning portal at the FPI if you are an FPI member. All right, so with that, Seema, thank you very much. And I'm going to remove you from the stream, and then we'll get into the discussion. Happiness. So let me first bring on Amanda and Louis and Mr. Russell Ho. Lady and gents, welcome once again, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Francois.
Awesome. Thanks, Francois.
So today we are going to talk about the step 5 and step 6 of the 6 steps of financial planning, which is obviously implementation for step 5, and then reviewing and monitoring in step 6, and particularly how we can use technology in order to facilitate and enable this and really enhance. I think these days it's so much about enhancing the client experience, and also how do we foster true engagement using technology, but also, sort of creating the efficiency and all of those good stuff. So I want to start off with, if we think about implementation, this is specifically now the advice has been given. The client has made a certain decision, and they want to move forward and implement something. All right, so I'm going to get into a little bit more about what these different somethings are, and I'm going to go to my panel to get this conversation started. And my first question would obviously be, if we go to technology specifically, and I want to start off with you, Louis, that, if we think about implementation and we think about technology, which aspects of implementation can you really use technology to make that process better, smoother, just a more enjoyable experience?
Yeah, thanks, Francois. I think it maybe goes one step before that to say, which elements of this financial plan is the client ready to implement? Because in the old days, we used to create a long list of things that we had to tick off and just say, okay, we're going to implement all of this at the same time. And what we see in practice is that only 20% of the clients that we engage with are ready to take action. So, you've taken them through these steps to get to this list of things that's going to make the biggest impact in their financial lives. And then it's keeping them accountable, helping them to implement this. So, it's not taking back the work and doing it behind the scenes. It's working with them. Sometimes it's, paying off debt. Sometimes it's reducing insurance. Sometimes it's, adding to their investment portfolio. And you can use project management tools like Asana or Todoist to keep track of this and share it with your clients. So I think it's creating that mindset of shared responsibility, and then using project management and task tracking tools to keep up to date with where you are with that implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda, from your perspective, what are the things that we can use technology for in terms of that implementation? Because I agree with Louis, it's not only anymore the traditional products. We filled in an application form, and now this massive document needs to be processed. What other aspects that you would like to add to what Louis has said?
Well, I definitely agree with Louis that it's not just implementation of a particular solution. Sometimes you may find there's, changes and updates that need to be made to an existing solution that sometimes was probably not even implemented by the current financial advisor that the client is actually sitting with. And one of the things that I can think of is the importance of a budget. And I'm so happy that Louis mentioned something to the lines of the fact that, there may be a need to really manage the debt, and to take a client through a particular process that helps them to free some cash, perhaps. As he said, only 20% of the time do we find that clients are actually ready to make any type of implementation. Therefore, a lot of the times there's reviews of budgets, there's managing of a budget that needs to happen. And I think on the budget note, it's so important that we understand that technology is there and it's there to be used. And I think it's time that we allow clients to really get very familiar with all the different types of apps even that may be there that can help them manage their debts. And one that I have top of mind is something like a 24/7 app type of a thing, which is so much around financial wellness, but within it builds things like budgeting tools. And I know it's not the only one, there's a lot out there. And I think sometimes it's helping a client understand the journey that they have to go through as well to get to a point where they can comfortably implement some or other solution. As Louis said, sometimes we can only do so much because of the situation of the client. So I would say a budgeting app is very important, or some kind of a budgeting tool, which does not necessarily have to sit in an app. But I think that budgeting exercise is really good, especially when done digitally, because then the advisor also has access to it from time to time and they can work on this process together.
Yeah, and Russell, I mean, like I know a little bit about your business and the way that you operate and what you do and so on. And I mean, you look at a vast array of things for clients. It's not only your solutions. They are also, sort of a professional network where certain referrals needs to happen between different advisors, etc. So, I think that's part of the implementation process, is now taking that next step and saying, okay, so these are all the action items that we've identified from the recommendations or the advice and what the client has agreed to. But now different people are going to be responsible for different things, of which one is the client themselves, and then obviously you, maybe your team, and then obviously anyone else that is within your network that you are utilizing to implement some of these things. So how do you go about managing that? Because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of flow, all of that kind of stuff. So how do you go about that?
Yeah, 100% Francois. And actually, I think I'm also agreeing with Louis, what Louis mentioned as well. So we use Asana, and we use it not only for managing the team, but also managing it with clients and, making sure that they also held accountable. Because like you mentioned earlier on, the old traditional way of financial advice, or how financial advice was provided, was, okay, I would have maybe 1 or 2 meetings with a client, pitch them a product, and then if they want to put in life insurance, then, oh, now we got to fill in 30 pages of forms, basically, that the client has to fill in. And you have to kind of take a step back and go back to the point of like having the discussion with the client of like, okay, we've looked at your whole situation, I've provided advice. What are we going to do now, implement going forward to improve your situation? So what we do basically is we use Asana. And the nice thing about that is that it erases the overwhelmingness of, constant WhatsApp and emails back and forth, not only with our team of seeing who's working together with who on this client's matter, but also when you set up a separate task with the client, it holds them accountable, because you send both parties can add input or any updates. And then it's a good way of keeping up to date and tracking like the progress of the client making, towards their goal, or, implementing a certain solution without having to WhatsApp the client every morning and so forth. So we use that. It's a very efficient tool. And in addition to that, I think it's also about establishing the pathway going forward with the client of saying, okay, if, for example, one of our goals is to help you pay off your debt, we've done a budget now. What I'm going to do, and I'll make it upfront to my client, I'm going to check in with you once a month going forward for the next 3 months, so that you can also use it as an opportunity to ask me any questions or let me know if there's been any changes. But also, I think it's a good method of holding clients accountable, because going back to the traditional way of financial advice, I think that's also the expectation most clients have, and they don't realize, is that they come to an advisor, and generally then, okay, now all the responsibility and work is now put on the advisor, when in actual fact, it should be a shared responsibility, like a partnership between the advisor and the client. And it also makes the client feel more involved and engaged, because they feel like, okay, it's not only just the advisor doing work, but I also have to paddle in this boat, should I call it, to progress to where I want to go, in the next 6 months or a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Louis, so I want to jump to you because you mentioned Asana first. So I want to pose a double barrel question to you. Well, the first one, obviously, what is Asana exactly? And then without getting into too much detail, because that's not what this is about, but just to give an overview of what Asana does. And then the second part to that question is, why can't the systems that we traditionally find in South Africa, why did you feel, because it feels like a trend where the younger generation tends to go look for different apps and then let these things play together and work together, and not looking at what the existing systems can do in South Africa. So just maybe that is a second part to that question, like why did you go elsewhere and not exploit an existing solution that offers all of this as well?
Okay, seeing that this is a tech and innovation chat, more than happy to jump into that. So I think it makes sense if you break it down into two components. So the one would be your internal team communication. And what we use in our business is a CRM system called Wealthbox, which allows you to add comments and notify people of tasks within your team, right? But that isn't necessarily client facing. The client doesn't necessarily know which step you are at. And so that's where these project management tools comes in. I know Microsoft has a couple of them. There's ones like Asana, which is just a project management. So imagine a group of tasks with subsets and with comments and with due dates, right? That you can share with your client so that they can see where you are. The tool is less important than what it is that allows you to communicate where you are in the financial planning process, or at least with the implementation process. You can do that through, like Russell said, reaching out through text message or WhatsApp or sending regular messages. I think it just comes down to actually communicating with your client and making sure that they're not left in the dark in terms of where you are with this implementation process. Your question around, do you find a holy grail and one tool that does everything really well? Unfortunately, that search has led to kind of very disappointed outcomes. And our approach is to rather try a best of breed and to start getting the tools to communicate to each other and to automate and integrate. It does mean that you tend to do a little bit more work, but the upside is that the client gets this wow experience, right? We can now use a specialist tool, something that I've spoken about, like Gravitas Tax, where you can do a tax simulation for a client. It's very difficult for existing software providers to go and add that on to their current base, because they have, they've got a long list of development requirements, where this idea of micro technology that you can plug into your practice and allow for better client experience just makes so much sense to us.
Yeah, and I fully agree with you. It's I think the other sort of part to that is, before you sort of get to that, because I feel like you can't just go out and try a bunch of tools and then decide, oh, this one works for me. Before you do that, you need to sort of know exactly what it is that you're trying to do. What do you need it for? Like, what is it that you're really trying to achieve? What is the pain that you're trying to alleviate? And then go in search for something that can solve that problem. If you just go out almost willy-nilly and just, oh, this looks cool and that looks cool, there will always be something cooler out there, and you will never get to something that's going to work for you. Amanda, based on that statement, sort of what do you see from what guys are doing in practice, like financial advisors, financial planners? What are they doing in practice when they go look for these solutions that can make certain processes better, smoother? Do they start with the technology, or do they actually start with what they are trying to achieve?
So I think something interesting that Louis mentioned in his feedback, and thank you for that insight on the tools, is that it may all seem, or actually it is, a lot of work. And I share that sentiment. I think a lot of financial planners and advisors out there really feel like integrating all of these things, maybe not in a digital sense, but the fact that they have to sit in front of 2, 3, or 4 different tools, including their F&A system itself, does tend to be a little bit overwhelming. So I can say that a lot of the times what we always try to kind of look out for, and I believe financial planners are also trying to do the same thing, is to see whether which parts of certain tools could possibly be enabled within an existing F&A tool, and again, that is so that people can find it a bit easier to do all of these things. And at initial stages, you will always find that the work is still required in any case. It might get a bit easier because the more you do anything, the easier it becomes. But that's not always the best solution. Like Louis was saying, they've gone out and it's been a bit of a disappointing response that some of these things aren't existing in an integrated manner. So I do find that a lot of financial planners do get a bit overwhelmed, and I think it takes time for us as well to play that supporting role, to almost even create awareness and educate, and get people and their practices even mentally ready and timeous ready to say, we are going to integrate this particular tool, or we are going to use this to onboard clients, or whatever the case may be, but it must be within the process, of making it easy to do business with the client, from onboarding to the implementation, to the review stage, to keeping in touch, like everybody has been saying. Yesterday, I actually had a meeting with somebody at LinkTank, and she mentioned to me some sort of a new WhatsApp, and that it's come about because of the noise around Poppy. And we haven't gotten into too much detail around that, but I'm finding it so interesting that there's something similar to a WhatsApp and functions very similarly to WhatsApp that people can now start using as part of curbing those risks around Poppy, to ensure that advisors and their clients actually feel very comfortable about the information, So I think that's definitely one of the things, Nick. When I know more about it, I'm more than happy to share. But I think there's a lot of things kind of starting to play a part based on the fact that regulation is changing. So many things are being updated, and they impact an advisor and the advisor's processes and practices in a different manner all the time. And I think it's very important to just keep up to date and be ready to embrace, something that will help your business, to do what it needs to do, which at the end of the day, like Louis said, something very interesting, elevating that client experience.
Yeah, and there's two parts to technology adoption. The one is that the technology that we need to learn and we need to adopt in our businesses. And then the other part is convincing clients to adopt that technology that we offer. And I think that's where a lot of advisors go, I don't have the energy or the stomach or the whatever for this, and then they just leave it, and sometimes it's our own fear that's keeping us from doing this. If you think about something like WhatsApp that you've mentioned, it is a widely used tool that everybody uses. So come along with something like Symphony, for example, that is able to do secure messaging, works the same as WhatsApp, integrate with a lot of different platforms and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Getting people to use it is the next step. Because people tend to, if you are sort of a late tool, then people are very, I'm happy with WhatsApp. I'll just send you my copy of my ID. I'm happy if you're happy. So, and those are the kind of challenges that we're also going to sit with. But Russell, I want to ask you, because you've also gone about and done a lot of things automated. I've had you on the podcast, we've had you on the show, we've had many discussions offline, you and I. There are things that you're doing in your business that have enabled you to run a business very leanly from a staff point of view. So you don't have a huge team, yet you do more than someone with 4 or 5 assistants that are helping them from that point of view. Now, in that journey, you learned some things that didn't work and things that did not go as well as planned. Any of those lessons that you can share with us to say, well, when you do go down this road of identifying what technology you want to use, what should people look out for?
Yes. So I have had a lot of my ups and downs when it came to, automating my business, and, especially started from the last few years. And I think probably one of the first key lessons I can share for anyone, and it's applicable to everyone in our advice space, whether you're young or old, is don't sign up for every tool because you hear it's fantastic, or you just see it's, the new trend or the buzz term. because you're going to land up with 20 subscriptions later and a mountain of subscription fees that you're paying for. And then you're going to start questioning of like, really, am I getting value out of this? And what I wish I learned sooner, which Francois, you've mentioned now, is before you look into, automation and also including a tool or some form of tech into your practice, is ask yourself two questions. It's like, okay, what purpose or goal am I serving with this, or what is it going to help me in terms of my practice? And then how much time am I going to save on this, but if I had to implement this tool, and what is the experience the clients gain from it? And is the cost that's required upfront for me to take this tool, is it going to be worth it getting, versus the output that I'm getting out of it, So that's a key thing I would say I look at, or my thought process, when I incorporate any form of tool, right? And then most of these fintech tools, including automation as well, what I've done to build a lean business is that you have to think about it as well. It's an ongoing process. You have to spend some time, and I've mentioned this in our previous webinar, is that you have to spend some time per week, even if it's 1 hour on a Saturday, of actually learning about how that tool works fully and how to incorporate more, so that you can fully understand the benefits and how it's going to save you time. Because a lot of us, I know, even with a lot of my colleagues and even myself, a lot of us at first are like, oh, this is too much, it's overwhelming, right? But you have to see it like, okay, if I just spend 1 hour looking into this, and if it's actually going to benefit me in my practice, it's going to save me maybe 30 minutes a week or 30 minutes a day doing this task that I'm so used to doing, by myself manually. And that might not seem much at first, but you times that by the amount of weeks, the amount of months, the amount of years that you build your practice towards, and it actually works out far more of higher value than saying, okay, I'm just not going to tackle it at it whatsoever. In addition to that, you can also pick out what are the limitations, because that's what I've learned over time when testing tools for automation and also for building my business, is that what works, how many benefits, what are the limitations? Is there going to be a time when I'm going to have to look for another tool, and upgrade it? And then I would say also the third lesson I've learned, which I would say when it comes to incorporating any form of tech or automation tools, is before you use it on clients, right? Test it out with your closest friends and family members. So I usually do it with my brother, because he's also a software developer, and he understands, a big thing for him is like user friendliness as a customer. And the nice thing about that is, coming back to the client, you get to hear feedback and opinions from someone that's usually on the receiving end. Because I think the biggest mistake a lot of us as financial advisors make when it comes to building our practice, with or without tech, is we tend to sometimes get into our bubble or head of like, okay, I'm using this because I like it as a financial planner advisor. But in actual fact, it might actually not be that appealing or beneficial for a customer or a client. So it's always good to get the input of others that aren't a financial advisor or financial planner by trade. So you can see, okay, this is what the experience is going to be like. And maybe that actually can help me decide whether I should incorporate this or invest into this, or look for another alternative. So those are my lessons I've learned in building my lean business. And the second, a lot of trial and error. And I would say like I'm still learning and improving, but it does help a lot. I'm just seeing the long-term value and the benefits of that as well.
Cool. So Louis, quickly, like, what are some of, just name the tools that you are using mostly when it comes to implementing, and maybe, and there will be some blurred lines between this and reviewing and monitoring and managing what happens between now and the next review. But just from an implementation point of view, just by name, like which tools are most important in your practice at this point?
Francois, I think the implementation, and even monitoring kind of is ingrained in your business. So that can include things like your communication channels, emails. We have some clients on a shared Slack channel. We have WhatsApp. You can carry on with different tools, but I think, it's important to, like Russell said, look at the efficiencies and look at the client experience. You are competing against digital natives, so people that are used to using technology, younger advisors. And, you need to spend time learning how to use these tools and creating better client experiences, because that's part of your job. Just like a surgeon has to go and research and, learn to how use their tools, you have to include that in your business. So other tools, in terms of implementation, a lot of it sits on the product side. For instance, we love using the Allan Gray platform because it's a seamless process. A lot of it's digital and it makes the client experience so much easier. We use portfolio metrics for our DFM, and once again, it's less important about the tool. It's about the mindset and starting, to work on your business and not just in your business.
Yeah, and I can already see in the comments here, people are asking, but like, what tools are you using? Like, people want names, and it's hard to really get into this because what works for Louis does not necessarily work for Russell or for me, because it depends on your client base. It is nothing to do really with the tool itself. And I think one of the most dangerous things you can do is to go with the most popular tool. If that is your decision criteria, you're making a huge mistake. So you should refrain from doing that. You should absolutely know and understand the way your business works, what is needed, the pain points, what is it that your clients are looking for, how they want to work with you and engage with you. And there's like a whole host of questions that you need to answer around that before you start, analyzing maybe the tools that you are using. If you're not really using any tools, you start researching what is available. So I think that's just a very important place to start, is you really need to know your business inside out, because the last thing you want is to implement a system and you have to change your entire business model to fit the system, instead of having a system that can be configured and adjusted and best of breed tools, like Louis said, being brought in, and then based on that you can take it from there, and that system then becomes part of your business, but it doesn't change your business, from I have to change the whole foundation and like the business model and everything just so that the system works for me. So absolutely. So let's move on a little bit to maybe talk a little bit more about just the ongoing relationship with a client, which is step 6, which is review and monitor. Because for me, this is sort of the ongoing relationship, keeping your thumb on the pulse, those kind of things. So how do we do that? Because there's a lot of things that we need to consider during that process. We're very good at onboarding a client, getting them into the business, sort of onto the system, even if you will. But there's managing of this ongoing relationship and keeping a hand on their plans, how they progress, and all of that, I think, is extremely important. So Amanda, typically I know you work a lot with process, helping financial advisors sort of really hone in their processes and those kind of things. But from your point of view, if I saw the client today, okay, what happens between now and the next review? So whenever that review may be, so whether I'm seeing you every 3 months or once a year, it doesn't matter. But what are the things that needs to happen between now and then?
I love that question. Also, because when we started implementing, the Pareto systems, which really focuses on relationship management, customer engagement, practice management, wealth management, and all of these things, I specifically remember when, I would sit with the group of first line managers and their BCs and everything. We would talk about, guys, when you end up sitting in front of your advisor and you helping them understand the process of how to service a customer, how to stay in touch with their clients, make sure maybe they even print something and put it close to their desk, at least with some of their top 10 or top 20% of their clients. Which now I'm thinking back, oh my goodness, that's quite a lot of work. And again, now I can proudly share, that those kind of things can all be digitized, because we now have that very service matrix, which has a couple of touch points, what we call touch points, the ones that have to be done, and then the ones that don't necessarily have to be done, but they still really matter in that client engagement as well as that client experience. So that very service matrix has now been integrated into our F&A tool, which of course we are using Xplan. But what's nice about it is that now an advisor is able to really navigate which clients fit in what category in their practice, and what are they going to do for which client, and why are they doing those things for the clients. So that has become a very important thing, because one of the touch points is not just a review. A review is just one of those things that everybody really has to do. And I think, something that Louis mentioned earlier, we have to learn to use these tools. You have to be updated all the time. You have to have a review. Let's just deal with that and be okay with it and move forward. But I think in that process, something similar to a service matrix that really helps you understand, what does your client base look like? How have you categorized your different clients? What are you deciding to do for which clients, which fit which category, and basically where are these clients in their financial planning, and I think understanding that can help financial advisors simplify that process. Again, that paper-based process is probably the most time-consuming one. So it's very important that when they understand why that process exists and what that process can help them do for the practice, of course, and for the client, it's actually easy to start seeing how these things can be digitized. And again, like Russell mentioned earlier, automated, because after that they make your work a lot easier. So definitely, we've integrated a lot of things that we've taken from this big project we've been doing for the last 4 years at Old Mutual around Pareto, and we've said, but all of it is about processes. We're encouraging people to engage, but engaging doesn't mean you're making a quick phone call. Engaging means understanding your top clients, at least what we call moments of truth. And what a moment of truth actually does is that it helps you, it informs you what are some of the special things you are encouraged to do for certain clients in your practice, because of the fact that those things will matter that much more, because they really mean something to a client. Hence, it's called a moment of truth. So those are some of the things that we are doing in the background and helping advisors understand why are they important, what can they do for you, and how do you go about automating it so that the tool, the system itself, can tell you when it's time to review. It can tell you when a particular moment of truth happens, like maybe if you had input information similar to, a client's wedding date, a client's date in terms of when their children will be graduating or going to a matric dance or whatever. Those are such great opportunities to engage a customer, and really let them know you're thinking of them, you're wishing them luck, or whatever the case may be. And I think they just always bring about that value-adding experience. And again, they help you stay top of mind as a financial planner.
So, talking about truths, let's throw a truth bomb, Louis. So, if you really think about where things are going, I mean, there's a lot of things being done in the essence of, what is the word now? Like behavior economics. You look at the way where the focus has shifted away from product and into more focusing on the person and helping them through making decisions or life transitions or all these wonderful things that financial advisors and planners are getting involved in. And the shift is also away from the technical side, although I believe that a financial planner will never get away from the technical side, but we will stop talking about it to clients. We will just do it in the background and then use it to inform our advice. And from that point, and you think about where things are shifting and where the value is moving, and you think about the phase requirements of having to do certain things, which is really more product focused, if I'm honest, is there still value in doing reviews? Like, what is your view on that? Should we be doing reviews, or is the sort of thing about a review not that relevant anymore? We're doing something else which is similar to a review but should be called something else. I don't know. I'm going to throw that question to you, and I'm interested to hear what you got to say.
That's a great question. So I believe the financial planning review, as we know it, is dying because clients don't want to sit in a meeting listening to an advisor telling them what they need to do. We used to use it in the old days when policies came to maturity and you had to make a financial decision. These days, the tables are turned. You can engage with your clients on social media. When there's important life events that might be coming up. And our role as financial planners are to partner with our clients and help them to make these complex decisions and break it down and to take action. So does the spouse wait to pass away just after a financial planning review? Does the baby wait for the financial planning review? No. Your life and your financial planning process and the engagement with your financial planner, that's moving closer and closer. And I think our role as a financial planner and guide and coach and counselor is that much more than someone giving feedback of what's happened. The reviews can be so historical, where that's information that someone can see in the palm of their hand. They can go onto their app and see, what has my finances done up until now? You don't need a financial planner to tell you that. But what you do need is that engagement and that support through these difficult life decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Russell, on your side, what is your view on this, and how do you approach these reviews, or let's say staying on top of clients and their changes and everything from your point?
Yeah, I'm on Team Louis with this now as well. I think the traditional financial reviews are also dying. And if you think about it, that's also the current perception that clients do have, is that a financial review is like, okay, it's the one meeting I have with my advisor every year, and he's going to go through my portfolio statement of all my policies and my investments. And my answer to that is like, there's no value in that, because if I was a consumer client, I could just go online, go onto my own, profile online, wherever my investments are held, register with my details, and I can have access to that. So what value am I getting from my advisor if I'm just having financial planning reviews where he or she's just going to do that? So I think the way I've seen it, the way that we are actually moving towards now, I would say with reviewing clients and keeping that good sensation of that feeling alive, is that you should actually see it as more of lifestyle engagements with the client, and don't wait for things to happen, but talk about things, be there with your client when it comes to like certain things that happen in the economy, or if there's changes or something that's a buzzword during the week, just being in contact. And that's what we've kind of done as well on our side. And it's a simple thing of just being there to communicate with your client, instead of, oh, I'll see you next year at this point and we're going to review your whole policies and your whole portfolio. It's about, in a sense, being in their frame of mind. And not only will that put you in a good space with the client, but your client will always then think of you when it comes to financial related, and they'll end up telling, their friends or their colleagues about you. I mean, two things that I've seen or I've benefited from where it's actually, literally happened to me in my field, is that the first one was last year when COVID first broke up, and SARS started doing this auto assessment thing, and it was still really new to everyone in South Africa. And I had so many clients that messaged me when it first started happening about, what is this auto assessment? Oh, do I owe money to SARS? And literally, I didn't do it to trend or anything like that. I created a short 2-minute video on my smartphone, so that, and I posted on my social media, and I sent it to all my clients through WhatsApp, so that people can stop asking me the same question over and over. Little did I know, clients were forwarding that video to all their friends or colleagues because they had the same questions. They also didn't understand it. And something as simple as that not only puts you in a good space with the client, because now they know they can talk to you when it comes to their finances or stuff that's unrelated to the policies or investments, but it can in turn create potential new business for you as well, you and your practice as well. And another experience that I had that I like to share, it's about, always engaging with your client, and it doesn't have to be about their portfolio, is that just checking in with your client, speaking to them more often. And because we have technology on our smartphone and WhatsApp and other tools like that, it doesn't always have to cost us an hour or 30 minutes. It can be a short video that you just send in to check in with your clients, right? Is that clients will end up telling their peers or their family members about, I actually end up talking to my advisor more often or than I expected. And I've had that with another couple as clients, where they said that their parents were shocked because their parents only see their advisor once a year for their portfolio policy review. And they are shocked to hear that their kids basically hear from me at least like every second month, if not more than that. And it's just having constant engagements. And it comes back to the point of like, you want them to be, or you want them to have you in their frame of mind when it comes to anything finance related, and it's just about them being assured that, no matter what happens going forward, I'll always have Russell or Louis or Amanda or Francois in my corner, and that means more to me than any policy or any product I took out, because I could have done that myself, but I'm coming to them because I want to partner with them as an individual. I'm not coming to them for the policy or the product.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's something quite interesting that now is coming from this discussion, and I think Louis started it, and Russell, you sort of maybe latched onto this, and you were talking about, we should have a lifestyle review or a lifestyle meeting and immediately I stand here going like, that makes so much more sense, because I think people value it more if you want to talk about their life and how they're advancing in life than it is about how their portfolio grew. Because for them, for most people, I would guess, money is not a thing that they like to talk about, number one. And secondly, it's just a means to an end. But it is the things that they achieve in life, whether that was because of the money that they have or not. That's the things, and there are things in life that are worrying them. So I think it's such an important point that everybody raised around that. My question now is, so Louis, you mentioned social media is one way, we can use social media to see when a baby is born and when somebody gets married and these kind of things. But I'm now keen to sort of hear what other ways are there, and I mean, Amanda, I'm going to jump to you, and I'm going to go to Louis and to Russell as well, but I'm maybe going to start with you, Amanda. Is there anything, and it's okay if you don't, but is there anything right in the second that you could think so if social media is one way, what other ways do we stay in touch and more in the know, more on a real-time basis almost, I want to say?
That's a little bit of a tricky one. And I think before I answer that, just to your point on the lifestyle engagement, and kudos to you, Russell, I love that statement around lifestyle engagement. I think it's so important and so meaningful. Basically, I think we've said this before, that people, at least your clients, don't really care how much you know, until they know how much you care. And I think that's such an important statement. So on to your question, generally social media, is the number one area where we can kind of suss out certain information. I think one of the other things is when you really understand your clients very well. I guess I'll talk about this whole categorization of your practice. When you understand your clients very well, and this is not talking about categorizing them according to A, triple A's, B's, and all of that, but also around different areas of interest. You do find an opportunity to engage your clients during certain things that are happening either in the economy, generally in people's lives. I think we're all hearing so much about mental illness and depression, whatever may be impactful to your clients that they really want to read about or talk to you about or engage you on. And I would say sometimes keep it simple, and go back to the emails where you understand what are some areas of importance that you can keep engaging your clients on because they have a particular interest in that. I remember I once worked with a first line manager about 4 years ago based in Pretoria. And I think he would be so happy me telling the story. And he once told me that he has a client who actually has a farm. I don't know the terminology for this whole, getting different animals to breed them and whatever, but that's what the client really does. And he says when he realized the passion that this client has for that, he could not even help himself. Every time he was at a store and saw a magazine around farming, he would actually get that magazine and courier it to a client to go and drop it off. And I think sometimes those are the things that, again, I go back to what I said earlier, those moments of truth are so important because sometimes it's not only social media that will give you that, recent knowing of what's happening in your clients' lives. But I think sometimes understanding who they are, what is of importance to them, what interests them, what do they like, what do they enjoy, certain things will be happening around you where those clients will become top of mind to you. Russell was talking about trying to remain top of mind to your clients, but I think your clients would love to remain top of mind on you as well. So I think those moments of truth, again, they keep coming out very strongly for me. And recording that kind of information helps you understand your clients even better. Because when you then have a review or any other, engagement in future, you are able to really go back and review what are the things you are supposed to know about your client because it's come up. Imagine sitting with the client and saying, oh, so are you still running the farm? And the client is like, no, I stopped 2 years ago. It's like, but you're supposed to know that, So I think it's very important to understand that there's different places besides social media.
Yeah. And I mean, Louis, if I come to you, sort of from your point.
Yeah, so this is a great topic. I think if you look at lifestyle financial planning, that people like the Vullentaba Association, if you're a member, you subscribe to lifestyle financial planning, and at the core of that is people's hopes and dreams and values. So part of it is, like Amanda said, working with clients to explore those values. But when it comes to kind of predicting what's going to happen in someone's life, Mitch Anthony talks about 53 life transitions that someone can go through, right? So this includes maybe the positives, like winning the lottery, or maybe even negatives, a parent that passes away. So I think there's some tricks that you can incorporate within your business to try and predict what's going to happen, right? What we see in our business is if someone typically requests their benefit statement from their company around their provident fund and their group life, they maybe have plans about changing work, and you can start having those conversations. Or if you look after their medical aid, you'd be the first to know when someone registers for a pregnancy benefit. So start using these things to try and predict what's going to happen in someone's life, not to trick them into working with you, but to be able to be there, to support them, to listen to them. And I think it all comes back to that, right? If you're the person that's not listening to your client and they don't feel comfortable and trust you to share this information with you, then they're going to go elsewhere and they're going to tell someone else about this life-changing experience. And you're going to lose out on that ability to assist and support your client through these difficult life transitions. So I would say the best place to start working on this is your listening skills. Get comfortable with these difficult conversations, become a safe place for your client, not for them to offload and transfer the work to you, but to actually, serve them better.
Yeah, no, I think, and the one thing that I also keep hearing, and that's sort of what that I'm hearing in the back of my mind, is that we need to become more proactive. So instead of waiting for a client to engage us, instead of waiting for a client to let us know that something has changed, if we listen, and there's different ways of listening, it could be when somebody's talking to you, it could be in a meeting, it could be just watching social media, whatever it may be. There's different ways of doing that. But then to act proactively on that and actually drive the engagement with the client instead of them having to come to you. So I think that's such an important point. Russell, in the interest of time, I'm going to move a little bit on with my next question for you. Reporting is quite an important part of what needs to happen during a review and monitoring process. Now, on the back of what we've been talking about this afternoon, is there any kind of reporting that you provide your clients in the interest of part of their review and monitoring ongoing relationship with you? Is there something that you do in this regard, or how do you approach this specifically?
Yes, thanks. So yeah, I think it's also ties in with part of the reviewing process, but part of reporting, and it's a page out of my mentor Corvis's book, is that basically after we've implemented or had the implementation meeting with the client, we first ask them, which also I think ties into the previous topic we were talking about now, is we actually outwardly ask the client, so what would you like to happen going forward? How many meetings would you like to have? What is the expectations you have? And I think that's one of the key areas that a lot of us forget to think about, pulling information from social media and events that happen in clients' life, is actually just openly ask them, like, what would you like more going forward? Or how can I continuously add more value going forward? And that sets up to the next question, which is like, okay, we're going to have more than one meeting going forward. And what you can do, and this is actually such a big assurance or form of assurance and trust to the client, is we set up, okay, with reporting and record keeping and also tracking your goals going forward, I'm going to say, these are the dates we're going to be moving forward or meeting, having meetings, whether virtual or in person. And this is like for life, basically, so you offering part of your value add is like longevity, that you are going to stay committed to always being there for them for the future years to come. And no matter what, for example, on January the 15th, we will always have our first meeting for the year. And that's about taking a more proactive approach to say, look, client, we've had this fantastic, process we've gone through. I've given you advice, but I want to assure you that it's not ending here. The honeymoon phase isn't over. We are going to keep this roller coaster going, and that gives your client a form of commitment. So we do that. And then usually what I also do, and we use AssetMap for our planning too, is that it allows us to print a one-page summary where we send in reporting or report updates to a client to show them, okay, this is like where you started, almost like a one-page financial plan. This is where you started. 6 months later, this is where we are. We haven't made a significant amount of progress, but we've made progress. And that, to a consumer or a client, it's on the human side, it's more appealing than just seeing these graphs. It's like showing that, okay, since I've started working with you and since I've listened to your advice, I am making progress. It's baby steps, but I'm making progress. And now that momentum is forward, pushing me to assure me that the things that I'm doing are the right things and my finances are on track. So it's about staying consistent with the client and letting them know that you are there to guide them through it and you are tracking their progress and report. But also makes them aware of like, okay, if there's anything new that happens or anything else I want to do, whether I want to invest more or I have another go, I'm going back to speaking to Francois, Louis, Amanda, or Russell, and it comes back to that human factor we added. So yeah, part of our reporting is having a commitment of meetings with the client saying, look, no matter what, we'll always have our meetings going forward on these days. And secondly, having regular check-ins with the client on like where they are and how much they are progressing. Because I think that's what clients tend to forget after the implementation phase is that, they have to wait until the 1 year meeting, or they don't know if they are really progressing. And it's all coming back to holding them accountable so that they don't fall off track, So yeah, that's what basically I do with my team around reporting and also kind of keeping track with client goals as well.
Awesome. All right, so I am going to ask each one of you to do a quick sort of closing comments. Amanda, we're going to start with you. Based on what we've discussed today, I guess the one question that still sort of is lingering in my mind is that sounds great, Russell, Louis, Amanda, but I have a huge client base. How do I manage all of this? So I don't know, if you want in the closing comments, you can answer that question, or you can just maybe, sort of summarize your thoughts around what we've spoken about today and what you believe is the most important takeaways for people. So Amanda, your thoughts?
I love that question. I mean, we are starting to visit, an exercise within the business, which helps us really understand, which advisors, for example, have succession plans, business continuity, which can include the fact that you've got this huge client base, and a whole lot of other exercises. And I think it's important for financial planners to understand that, yes, you might have built up this big book. The value doesn't necessarily sit in the fact that you've got 878 clients, but you can still, we talk about small is the new big, small can still give you that much value. And I think in my closing comment, I'd really like to leave the financial planners on the call, with the thought around, it's okay to use reviews since we are on the review stage. It's okay to use reviews to really revisit whether are there certain clients that you want to continue working with. And it's okay to disassociate from certain people. It's okay to realign your servicing with another partner, like another financial advisor, And I think these are very important conversations that we need to start having with financial advisors, again, so that they're not too overwhelmed. We can really help them understand the value of the fact that small can be the new big. So that's one of the things I definitely like to leave with in terms of especially the reviews, that use the reviews to possibly disassociate or realign, especially if your practice is very big.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. Louis, over to you.
Yeah, we're in the business of building relationships. Start with that in mind. If you have a small practice, that is probably an advantage that you have. Look at where you can offer value to your clients. Typically, clients don't leave, but don't give them a reason to leave. Engage with them, use technology, embrace these things, and have fun. Finance can be so serious, and we have an opportunity to break it down and create an enjoyable experience for your clients.
Yeah, change finance to finance. I mean, that could work. Thank you very much, Louis. Russell, over to you.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll share basically is whether if you've got a massive practice and whether you want to invest in your new tech to automate, or the other alternative is either to partner up with another financial planner or bring in a younger planner, or I like to call a junior associate, into your team, is don't see tech or hiring a new person as an additional cost to your business, or like, oh, it's another expense. See it as an investment. I think one of the biggest issues I've seen is that a lot of planners are reluctant to hire a junior associate planner because they think of like, oh, I'm going to have to pay this person a salary and train them and so forth. It takes so much time. But if you see them as part of your business and you invest in and mentor and coaching them to handle a section of your client base, and you imparting your values, your passion, your organizational culture into them, they'll multiply your business, And also when it comes to, incorporating tech into your business, see it as an investment. Don't see it as a cost. And I think also to end off, what I would say at the end of it, or also at the forefront of it, always be human with your client. Be the human person of, to be related with your client, share personal experiences when it comes to checking in with them on their lifestyle engagements, because they're coming to you for you as a person. If they wanted to just get, investment updates and all that, they could do it through the robo-advisor, but they want to hear the good and bad through you when you talk about finance stuff. Don't be afraid to be human and to be open, because that's how clients find authenticity, and that's how they build further deepening relationships with you as their advisor.
Yeah, great way to end off. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over back to Seema to close off the session for us. But from my side, thank you to my panelists, or to the panelists, not my panelists, but the panelists. You were all three of you were phenomenal. Thank you very much for all your time and effort in preparing for this, and also coming on this in a live format to share as much as you've done. So really appreciate it. And I want to really is implore the right word, go and watch the other two sessions as well. If you missed them, they are available on the channel. So go back and see what we discussed. It was the same panel, but we had different things that we discussed throughout those sessions. So definitely go and look out for that as well. With that, Seema, let me bring you back on to do the closing.
Thank you, Francois. Amanda, Louis, Russell, as well as Francois, thank you for your time and your insights. For many a year when I was a learning and development facilitator, preaching this 6 steps of the financial planning process to young planners that have just joined the industry, it was very, it was a vital topic, but it was more of a theoretical perspective, and you four have definitely brought life into the 6 steps of the financial planning process, and I think and reinforced its importance. And so a special thank you to the Tech and Innovation Subcommittee of the Practice Management Competency Committee at the FPI for organizing this 3-part webinar. This is a voluntary committee, and we appreciate the time and the effort that went into bringing this topic to light. Should you have any queries regarding your CPD hours, please send us an email to academy@fpi.co.za. And panelists, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, and have a fantastic, fantastic day further.
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.